Okay, we'll start with testimony in support. Please state your name and begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Mr. Chairman, you look pretty good with the gavel up there. David Jackson, registered lobbyist with COPE 24, and I'm going to give a kind of a brief outline here on the policy side of this and kind of the angle of how this is amending our current statutes, and then defer to Rene here with COPE 24 to give you some more idea on kind of the curriculum side of this. So we've heard a lot of bills over the years about adding new graduation requirements for different courses and different things that, a lot of times are emerging issues and very important, whether it be computer science or religion. There's a lot of things that have been tossed out there in different legislation. So right now, every student is required to take a health education course before they graduate and a personal finance class before they graduate. So rather than creating a new requirement, what this bill does is simply changes the current requirement for health education and makes it health and family education. So we went back to look to see where the statute was regarding the requirement for health education, and there's not any. It was actually implemented by the State Board of Education several years ago. And so this bill puts that requirement, what's already required, through regulation, puts it in statute, renames it health and family education. And part of and Rene can expand on this, a big piece of that is including what Representative Ellerbach is talking about in terms of the financial responsibility associated with parenting and families. And so we actually looked at maybe tying this into the personal finance course or the health education course. We thought it was a better fit with health education, but I think it's definitely tying in both of those issues in together because as Rene can explain more on, there are classes already out there with family and consumer science, but you have 10% of kids that are taking those electives, 80% of kids will become parents. And so, looking more into those big issues that every kid is going to face at some point in family and giving those guardrails and how to, answer questions and things that they're going to handle in everyday life, we feel like it's important to bring the industry professionals in. This isn't just deferring to DESE, it's putting together a work group that's modeled after how the computer science statute reads, and then bringing in industry professionals, whether it be, the YMCAs, people like Ms. Chant's organization, to help come together and put together those guardrails in that curriculum. So with that, I will hand it off to Rene to explain more.
I want to start out by saying thank you for hearing this bill and to Representative Cups for actually presenting it for us. My name is Rene Howitt. I am the founder of COPE 24, which is a nonprofit child advocacy organization located in St. Louis, Missouri. COPE stands for Changing Our Parenting Experience in 24 Hours and 24 Hours a Day. I've spent the last 14 years working with family and consumer science teachers, at first just across the state of Missouri, but then it became nationwide. And those teachers offer classes like parenting, child development, family living, adult living, but it is an elective. And I at the same time that I was doing that work, I also had been appointed to Missouri's Task Force on Children's Justice, the CJA, and a subcommittee of that committee was the Critical Event Review Committee, where we reviewed cases that happened right here in Missouri where the worst outcome could have happened. A child was either dead or so severely injured they'll never be healthy again. And I wrote the reports for the state of Missouri for that. I termed out of that work right before COVID hit. So in February of 2020, which kind of worked out well for me because I don't know what they've been able to do since then. But in all of that work, what I was doing because of a personal situation that began in my life in 1999, I was looking for two things. I was looking to understand child welfare and the policies that they have to work within and why it is the way it is, but also solutions. Because whether you know it or not, child welfare is completely overwhelmed. I sat in a hearing last week where Daryl Missy talked about being understaffed and people being underpaid and workloads and caseloads, and all of those issues are very true. The thing I would want you to know is if those issues were resolved tonight, child welfare is still completely overwhelmed. And that is not their fault, and it's not the family court's fault. We have families that are in crisis. Really, the biggest public health issue we have in this state and in the nation is the crisis within our families. We have far too many kids in need of help. We have far too many families in crisis. And who are the leaders of the family? The parents. And so the solution that I came up with is, while child welfare is trying to do the best that it can do, we can get out in front of this. We can be educating our future pool of parents, which are our high school students. Our high school students only know family life from the perspective of the child, and we're trying to prepare them for family life from the perspective of the parent, which is completely different. And they need to understand that the things that they say and do in front of their children have lifelong effects on their children. When I was in classrooms speaking, and I did that for about 6 years, one of the things that I would say during my presentation to the students was, if this is you, if you go to your room at night and say to yourself, I'm never going to treat my children the way that I was treated. I'm never going to talk to them like that. I'm never going to call them those names, belittle them, touch them, hit them. That is a great first step. But then the next question needs to be, then what are you going to do? Because the things that you do that make your parents come unglued, and your siblings do, all children do. All babies cry, all toddlers throw tantrums, all children need to be potty trained, all children will lie to their parents, none of them want to do their homework, nobody wants to eat their vegetables. Those are things all parents have to deal with, and that's what we're talking about. This class change, because health is already required, currently, the things that are taught in the health class, those things don't even change. What we're saying is right now, health is about health and me as the student. And we're saying it needs to be about health and me, the student, but also me, the parent, in the future. And how do we handle these situations? Because they're going to arise. And what David said, that about 10% of our student population actually take those family and consumer science classes now, but of that 10%, less than 10% are young men. And they're the fathers. So we're doing a really bad job of reaching our kids and preparing them for what we know is the most difficult job they're ever going to have. So with that, I just thank you for listening, and I'm willing to answer any questions.
Thank you for that testimony. Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you for that testimony. Further testimony in favor of House Bill 2916. Any testimony in opposition to House Bill 2916? Any testimony for informational purposes only? Seeing none. Okay. That concludes the hearing on public hearing on House Bill 2916. Seeing no further business before the committee, we are adjourned.